gripping the window ledge with his hand. His voice was unsteady. The clumsy figure of Horrocks came forward out of the shadow. He made no answer to Rout's remark. For a moment he stood above him. The woman's heart was cold within her. "I told Mr. Rout it was just possible you might come back," she said, in a voice that never quivered. Horrocks, still silent, sat down abruptly in the chair by her little work-table. His big hands were clenched. One saw now the fire of his eyes under the shadow of his brows. He was trying to get his breath. His eyes went from the woman he had trusted to the friend he had trusted, and then back to the woman. By this time, and for the moment, all three half understood one another. Yet none dared say a word to ease the pent-up things that choked them. It was the husband's voice that broke the silence at last. "You wanted to see me," he said to Rout. Rout started as he spoke. "I came to see you," he said, resolved to lie to the last. "Yes," said Horrocks. "You promised," said Rout, "to show me some fine effects of moonlight and smoke." "I promised to show you some fine effects of moonlight and smoke," repeated Horrocks, in a colourless voice. "And I thought I might catch you tonight before you went down to the works," proceeded Rout, "and come with you." There was another pause. Did the man mean to take the thing coolly? Did he, after all, know? How long had he been in the room? Yet even at the moment when they heard the door, their attitudes... Horrocks glanced at the profile of the woman, shadowy, pallid in the half-light. Then he glanced at Rout, and seemed to recover himself suddenly. "Of course," he said, "I promised to show the works under their proper dramatic conditions. It's odd how I could have forgotten." "If I am troubling you," began Rout. Horrocks started again. A new light had suddenly come into the sultry gloom of his eyes. "Not in the least," he said. "Have you been telling Mr. Rout of all these contrasts of flame and shadow you think so splendid?" said the woman, turning now to her husband for the first time, her confidence creeping back again, her voice just one half-note too high. "That dreadful theory of yours that machinery is beautiful and everything else in the world ugly. I thought he would not spare you, Mr. Rout. It's his great theory, his one discovery in art." "I am slow to make discoveries," said Horrocks grimly, damping her suddenly. "But what I discover—" He stopped. "Well?" she said. "Nothing." And suddenly he rose to his feet. "I promised to show you the works," he said to Rout, and put his big clumsy hand on his friend's shoulder. "And you were ready to go." "Quite," said Rout, and stood up also. There was another pause. Each of them peered through the indistinctness of the dusk at the other two. Horrocks' hand still rested on Rout's shoulder. Rout half fancied still that the incident was trivial after all. But Mrs. Horrocks knew her husband better, knew that grim quiet in his voice, and the confusion in her mind took a vague shape of physical evil. "Very well," said Horrocks, and dropping his hand, turned towards the door. "My hat?" Rout looked round in the half-light. "That's my work-basket," said Mrs. Horrocks, with a gust of hysterical laughter. Their hands came together on the back of the chair. "Here it is," he said. She had an impulse to warn him in an undertone, but she could not frame a word. "Don't go," and "beware of him," struggled in her mind, and the swift moment passed. "Got it," said Horrocks, standing with the door half open. Rout stepped towards him. "Better say good-bye to Mrs. Horrocks," said the ironmaster, even more grimly quiet in his tone than before. Rout started and turned. "Good evening, Mrs. Horrocks," he said, and their hands touched.